Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Radiant Essential, and I'm your host Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So last week I did a video about white rice and my opinion on white rice and if it fits into a healthy diet, and a few people had left comments stating that they get heartburn or indigestion from rice, and I actually have quite a few suggestions for this as to what rices might be harder to digest or causing the heartburn and indigestion, and which rice is actually very much easier to digest, and also how to prepare rice in a way that can make it easier to digest and help to avoid the heartburn, and also what time of day to be eating rice and with what foods, because those that do have a hard time digesting rice and running into the heartburn and all that there's many different things that could be contributing to the issue. And it's not necessarily always the rice, but it could be what you're eating it with and all that. Now, if someone doesn't have any issues with rice and they digest it well and they can eat whole grain rice or white rice and have no problems, then great, continue as you're doing. But for those that really run into having heartburn and acid reflux and just feel awful every time they eat rice, then here are some suggestions for you. First, what I'll do is go over the different types of rices in which I feel cause the most issues for most people, and which rice I find to be the easiest out of all rices to digest, and that's something you can try out. So I find in general that all whole grain rices like wild rice, black rice, brown rice, those for people that get heartburn from rice will run into most problems with the whole grain rice. That's number one. So if you get heartburn or indigestion from rice, it might be because of the whole grain rice. It's just harder for the body to break down. It might stay in the digestive system for too long and then start coming back up. You can then try and go with a white rice. Now, I also find, along with the whole grain rices, that short grain rices are also very difficult for people to digest. And the short grain rices, whether they're brown rice or white rice, is irrelevant. I just find in general short grain or glutinous rices, they're also quite dense. And when they're cooked, it's a thicker kind of rice. And for a lot of people, it becomes like glue in their system. And short grain rices are always used in sushi, or they're used in risotto, or in Asia we use a glutinous short grain rice for desserts and stuff, like a sticky rice. So if you run into issues with heartburn and you eat a lot of risotto or something, that might be because of the short grain rice. Out of all the rices out there that I find to be easiest to digest is white basmati rice. Some people have issues even with white rice, right? And they try jasmine rice and all these different rices, and even if it's brown or white, they're still having issues. But I find with basmati rice, white basmati rice, it's the fluffiest, lightest rice out there. This is pretty much the staple for Indian food. They eat white basmati rice, and that I find to be the easiest for people to digest. So if you're having issues and you've never tried basmati rice, or it's been a long time that you've had it, try it with your food and see if that one will work. Some people soak their rices, especially the whole grain rice. They'll soak a brown rice or black rice or wild rice for a few hours and then cook it. And some people find that really helps, because the soaking process is sort of breaking some of that stuff down, making it a little bit easier to digest. Other people cook the rice in more water and for a longer period of time. This softens the rice even more. It really thoroughly cooks it through, which for some people makes it easier to digest. So that's another thing you can try as well when you're preparing rice. But in general, I find that just basic basmati rice to be one of the easiest rices out there to digest. All the other rices can be quite difficult for some people. Okay. Now, when it comes down to eating rice, if you get heartburn, indigestion, acid reflux from eating rice, one thing I suggest is not to be eating it in the evening. If you eat it at all, the best time of day to be eating it is in the middle of the day for your lunch. If you eat it in the evening, you need time for your body to break it down, and usually the indigestion and acid reflux really comes up at night when you're lying down or you're sitting around. And I find in general that if you eat the rice in the middle of the day, you haven't had that much food in your system. All you've had is breakfast, and then usually breakfasts are lighter and you have time to digest it before you have the lunch. That when you have the lunch and you have the rice, it's just easier for the body to break down, and your body's warm, it's working, and it has time to move things through before you're lying down. So if you're going to eat rice and you have prior experiences with acid reflux and indigestion, eat the rice in the middle of the day, never for dinner, never before you go to bed. Another suggestion too is to only eat rice with vegetables and avoid the sauces, avoid the fats with it. Just have rice and vegetables in a very light sauce, you know, something very kind of basic. I find if you have indigestion and issues with acid reflux, mixing rice with either heavy oily sauces or mixing it with meats or even seafood and fish, it's mixing the proteins with the starches can be quite difficult to digest for someone that has issues with acid reflux. So I would suggest more making like a light stir fry with not so much oil with the rice with vegetables, or having rice on its own with a vegetable dish on the side and mixing it in, and just keeping the oils and the fats low, and just eating meat with something else later on in the day, and always again having the rice in the middle of the day and not at the end of the day. In general, I find it'll be much easier to digest when it's mixed up with other vegetables that have been cooked well and easy to digest. So these are things to try out. Now, if someone really just has issues with heartburn with rice and no matter what they're trying, it doesn't work, then stay away from rice. Eat another grain, you know, that you can digest. You know, I find in general, it's like sometimes we just can't digest things. And sometimes at one point in our life we can't digest it so well, but later on we revisit it and we have no issues. So it's one of those things that it's like if something doesn't agree with you, sometimes you just need to take a break. All right, so those are my suggestions, and I'm wishing you guys a super fabulous day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.